there is a concerted effort, I would think, to really stymie your efforts and efforts of a third party. Talk to me about this conspiracy, which is pretty obvious. I mean, you got the Republicans and the Democrats who obviously want to slam the door on you, but you also mentioned big media. I'm sure if we put you on a police lineup, there's a lot of people in the United States who wouldn't be able to identify you as a presidential candidate, which means that your message isn't getting out. So talk to me about all of those things aligned to help prevent you from succeeding.
Yeah, I mean, there's a broad array, and it's not just to prevent me, it's really to keep the American people from having a voice in this election. And the reason that they have to be very, very careful, this is a big threat, because the American people are clamoring for exactly those solutions that our campaign brings to the table. So how do they keep us quiet? How do they keep the American people down? For one, they make it very hard for opposition voices to get on the ballot, and we have to spend most of the election, most of the past year has been spent actually acquiring ballot status. But we have that now. We're on our way to being on the ballot for 90 to perhaps 95% of voters. So the support of the American public is there that has actually made that happen. By putting our electoral system into the hands of big money, they ensure that essentially it's only the status quo that continues to monopolize the game. But there again, the American people have rallied and enabled us for the first time as a Green Party member to qualify for federal matching funds. So we will have more resources than ever before to get the word out. But more important, I think, than anything is the fact that free media, that the democratization of the internet through social media and through Facebook, this has come of age, and it's had an enormous role to play, probably a primary role to play in the democracy revolutions in the Middle East over the course of the last year and a half.
So can there be a U.S. spring then?
Yeah, exactly. And that is, I think, the real question, whether we as the American people, the mothers and fathers and sons and daughters who basically are not looking at a future. We don't have jobs, we don't have adequate wages, we've got a climate in meltdown, you know, and all of the same problems continue to grow. It's a question of whether we will take our future in our hands and get the word out. In my view, there are many ways to win this race. One way to win it is by actually winning the office and turning the White House into a greenhouse, and the world would be a better place for it.
In 1992, in the U.S. presidential race, as you well know, Ross Perot got about 19% of the vote. In 2000, Ralph Nader, who was the Green Party candidate, got about 3% of the vote, which were considered actually pretty good. And yet in 1992, a lot of people were saying George W. Bush, Perot hurt him, it cost him the election. There are still a lot of people who say Al Gore could have won if Ralph Nader hadn't siphoned off those votes. You're kind of painted as a spoiler if you're a third-party candidate. How tough does that make your role?
Well, you know, it's no surprise because the political establishment will go to great lengths to suppress the voice of its opposition, and that's how it's done in this country. This is how the predators who are raking us over the coals managed to silence the opposition. But I think we're in a very different place now than we were 10 years ago, 12 years ago, after the Nader election. At that time, there was this drumbeat that you have to suppress your vision, you have to suppress your values, you have to vote your fears. But we now have a very clear track record of where we get by voting our fears over the last 12 years. And it's clear that this politics of fear has delivered everything that we were afraid of. All those reasons we were told to be quiet because we didn't want an expanding war, massive Wall Street bailouts, the offshoring of our jobs, expanding free trade agreements, declining wages, the meltdown of the climate. All those things we were told to be quiet so we wouldn't get, we've gotten by the droves because we were quiet. People have learned it's not the politics of fear. We have to replace that with the politics of courage to actually lead the way forward ourselves. There are simple solutions, but we don't move towards them. We simply accelerate in the wrong direction. We're going backwards faster and faster under the current Wall Street-driven political establishment. And people are starting to realize that they do have a choice. They can take their future into our own hands, take back our democracy, and the peaceful, just, green future we deserve. It is within our reach.
The United States is the only G7 country without universal health care for all. Why is that, exactly, and how would you address that? I mean, you're talking about some pretty lofty goals, but we know that there's not a lot of money in the piggy bank.
Well, exactly. So two things. You know, the reason we don't have it, it's another symptom of this disease, which is called, you know, Wall Street and corporate control. So the bills are written by the lobbyists for the health insurance and pharmaceutical industries. We have the Affordable Care Act in my state, in Massachusetts. You could call it Romney Care or Obamacare. It's basically the same thing, and it's not working. You know, it's delivering for the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies, but not for ordinary people. But how do we get to a win-win solution? We use what actually works, what has a track record. It's called Medicare for All. We simply drop the eligibility age. And in fact, a well-kept secret is that this saves us money. It's not only affordable, it actually saves us trillions of dollars over the next decade. How? Number one, because currently our private health care system is spending 30% of our health care dollars on this massive, wasteful health insurance bureaucracy. So under a single-payer Medicare for All system, that 30% overhead shrinks to a 3% overhead. And that huge margin which is being wasted allows us to expand health care to cover everyone.
Well, Dr. Stein, thank you so much for joining us here on The Heat. And if you win this election, please invite me to the inauguration, because I think we gave you the platform to get that vote that you need. So thanks so much again.
Thank you so much, Mike. It was great to be with you.